Can we talk about the temptation to pose for peace? Around this time of year, I tend to receive an influx of mail, Christmas cards, actually. And look, I'm grateful. Many of you send me cards too, and I feel honored to make the list along with your friends and your loved ones and those you feel obligated to send a Christmas card to. But I'd noticed something not too long ago. Often, these cards are a photo that was taken sometime in the past fall. A nice photo of the sender where they're sitting, holding hands, maybe by a pumpkin, or they're walking hand in hand on a beautiful rustic bridge. Everyone's laughing or smiling. I've received a bunch of these over the years. These cards from families as well, where the whole family is looking happy and having a good time. Even the small children and infants seem to know exactly what's going on, and they're enjoying themselves thoroughly. But I can't help but wonder, because I've got kids. What did this family look like 2 minutes before the photo was taken? What did they look like a few minutes after this photo was taken? Maybe my family's different, but I know for a fact that we don't walk around in nature swinging clasped hands and laughing and smiling about nothing but the thought of being together. And when I've brought this up with people, I've repeatedly heard this over and over again. As I compliment their card and their photo, the response I get is, "Oh, well, you should have seen us 2 minutes before that picture. The kids were in fine form that day," or "the family was pretty annoyed with me," or "I was feeling pretty sick that day." I don't know what it is, but we love to pose for peace, even though the truth is anything but peaceful. I think one of my favorite Christmas cards to receive has to be the one that has a beautiful starry sky pictured with one big star in the middle, larger than the rest. And in particular, the light of that big star is shining on this quiet little stable where there are shepherds and wise men who weren't actually there at the same time. There's a bunch of farm animals, Mary, who has instantly lost all of the baby weight, and Joseph, neither of which look tired or annoyed that there are random visitors at the door wanting to see their child, talking about an angelic experience that they just recently had, or how they followed the stars to get here. We love this picture of peace, but the truth was anything but. I mean, the emperor in that day had issued a decree. Augustus was the emperor of Rome for 40 years when this was going on, and a lot of people would say that under his reign there was peace. Before he came to power, the empire was being torn apart from the inside out. There was all kinds of civil war and attacks coming from the outside. But when Augustus rose to power, he brought peace and unity to a chaotic empire. At least it looked like peace. But the truth is that he did so through fear and intimidation. So this little town of Bethlehem is in a region that was actually being occupied by soldiers who were controlling the masses through intimidation and fear. And to fund this occupation, the residents were being taxed heavily beyond what they could afford. So yeah, it was peace for those who could afford it. It was peace for those who were willing to submit. It was peace for those who would bend the knee to the emperor. But for everyone else, it was violence. It was frustration. It was anything but peace. And in the midst of that political and cultural climate, a young man had to take his 9-month pregnant wife 70 miles north to Nazareth, to the city of Bethlehem, to register. In other words, to go wait in line at the Secretary of State office with all kinds of other people. And while they're there, she's got to give birth to a child. Now, I have 2 kids, and I'll tell you, being in the room during that birth is anything but peaceful. There's nowhere for them to stay because the town's full up on people who have showed up for that government registration. So she has to give birth to a child in a barn. She wraps him up, she lays him in a feeding trough, and before you know it, strangers show up, talking about angelic experiences. I mean, that sounds like anything but peaceful. We like the appearance of peace, posing on the Christmas cards, but the reality was anything but that. But you and I get that, right? Yeah, the Christmas card looks great, and we send it to people. We send them love, joy, and peace, but often our realities are anything but peaceful. Never mind the fact that this holiday, which is supposed to be about peace, can often bring way more stress and hectic running around at the last minute than any other time of year. I mean, some of you are going to head to Christmas dinners tonight or later this week, and you're going to have to sit across the table from someone you've been feuding with for years. You're going to have to listen to their views and their ideas and their opinions, listening to how a wannabe emperor is sending his own military into our own country's streets. Some of you are going to be forced to eat dinner with him, to share dessert with with her, and you just can't forget what they said. And you can't just forgive what she did. Sure, they said no hard feelings, but you can't help but feel like things are hard. Oh, Corey, if you only knew. No, I know. We pose for peace. The card looks great, but reality is anything but. Some of you are going to sit with your kids around a Christmas tree. You're going to watch them open presents and barely say anything to your spouse because, well, you haven't had a real conversation with him or her in the last 3 months that hasn't ended up in an argument, but the card looks peaceful. For some of you, this is going to be the first Christmas without him. This is going to be the first holiday without her. And yeah, you give the appearance of peace, but it's actually tearing you up inside. The holidays in the midst of grief and loss, they don't feel like peace, but the card looks good. Some of you are going to pose for peace just by sitting in a church this year, posing for peace with God, but the truth is you haven't talked to him in years. Yeah, you go through the motions. Maybe you show up on the holidays to keep your mom happy, but the truth is things aren't so good between you and him. But what Luke wants us to know in his gospel, what God wants us to know, is that at Christmas, we celebrate the entrance of real peace into the world. Not just a stalemate, not just a ceasefire, not silence under the threat of violence. But on that first Christmas night that Jesus was born, real peace came into the world. The message of the angel announces real peace. Peace has come on earth, and to mankind, God's good will. The peace that the angel is talking about is a peace that the ancient people of God called shalom. It wasn't just an absence of war and fighting, but instead it was a peace that meant that everything is as it should be. You see, often when people talk about sin, we usually think about it in terms of, breaking religious rules. But theologian Neil Plantinga, who's an author and is one of my seminary professors, he says that sin is best defined as when things are not the way they're supposed to be. When you look at things in your life and you realize that they're not the way they should be or the way they could be, whether it's death or disease or family feuds or marital strife, whatever it is, if it's not the way it's supposed to be, there's probably some sin in there. And the peace that the angels announced at Christmas is the peace that puts everything back to the way it ought to be. So the angel says that with the birth of Christ, peace has come to earth. And if you read beyond the Christmas story, you'll see that peace being made known all over the place. This Jesus, this peace that was born to us on Christmas, spends the rest of his life showing us what that peace looks like. It's the blind seeing, it's the lame walking, it's the sick being healed, it's the disconnected people being welcomed back into the community, it's lost sheep being sought and found by searching shepherds, it's the dead being raised and demons being cast out, it's the hungry being fed and the broken hearts being bound up, it's the wayward sons being welcomed home by forgiving fathers. And most importantly, it's God reconnecting with people. Now, the second part of the angel's message is important too. God's goodwill to mankind. God has goodwill toward people and wants peace for them. Jesus is the proof. You see, at Christmas, we celebrate the fact that God moved in our direction, in the direction of ordinary people, in order to bring peace. Jesus is proof that God does have goodwill for people, all people. Not just religious people, not just perfect people, but all people, like you and me. For shepherds and carpenters and astrologers and soldiers. And if you read the rest of Luke, you're going to see he spent time with prostitutes and people in the service industry and people in retail and foul-mouthed fishermen and tax collectors and people that everyone else hated, lepers and the people that everyone was disgusted by, and also the religious elites and the rich and the people that everyone envied and looked up to. Jesus spent time with them all because they all needed peace. They all had brokenness and sin in their lives, stuff that just wasn't the way it ought to be. And Jesus came to bring peace to them all. And at the end of his life on earth, he died for them all, so that they could have direct access to God for eternity and a peace that holds steady in the midst of anything. I think one of the best ways to talk about the heart of the Christian faith is this, that things aren't the way they're supposed to be. Things aren't nearly as peaceful in our lives as we put on the cards. But the good news of the gospel is that God is on a mission to fix all of that brokenness, everything that isn't the way it's supposed to be. He's on a mission to fix all of it. But he's starting with his relationship with you. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, look, Corey, that's nice, but God hates me. He's punishing me. I mean, look at everything I've done. Look at my life. Look at all the things that have gone sideways. I know. I get it. But God isn't punishing you. The heart of the Christian faith is that Jesus was punished in your place. You see, here's the truth of Christmas. In the midst of a world posing as peaceful, but was actually anything but, God brought real peace in the person of Jesus. Jesus is proof that God wants peace on earth, that God has love for us and goodwill toward all of us, toward you. So friends, this Christmas, may you stop posing for peace. May you start processing what his shalom might actually look like in your life. I mean, what would it look like for things to be made right? I'd love to hear from you. You share your thoughts in the comments. But for now, that's it for this one. Merry Christmas.